Bears Nation. Bears Nation.
Start with the past. There's nothing you can do to change it, so throw it out. Take out the trash. The trash is anything that is keeping you from the only thing that matters.
See you in the Super Bowl.
Ready?
It's Bears Nation
Podcast.
I don't want them to gain another yard.
Picked off by Mac. You blitz all night. Mac will take it all the way in for a touchdown.
It's time for the Bears Nation Podcast with your hosts, Kevin Lapka
That's just a straight shooter with upper management written all over him.
and Jake Hassan.
What I'd really like to do is put the greatness of this man in perspective.
Phenomenally good.
Okay, guys, show us what you got.
Bears Nation Podcast, Wednesday, January 19th, 2022. It is the off season, well, for the Bears anyway. But we are here, and we are, Kevin, where are we now? We're somewhere new that I can't remember. So you're going to have
We're
to.
on ASAP Plus Network. We're
There
on
it is.
Chicago for real. We got it all,
Yeah,
so it's exciting,
yeah.
man.
Yeah, so we are in 100 different places. So if you are watching, if you are listening, we appreciate you being here. Big episode today. Jarrett Payton rejoins the program. He was on like 2 months ago-ish, earlier in the season when things were still kind of ish hopeful for the Bears before everything went to hell. And he is returning because there's still Bears stuff going on, obviously, a GM search, a head coaching search. So Jarrett Payton will be joining us shortly. But until then, Kevin Lapka, how you doing?
Doing all right. We're getting a little bit of somewhere with this head coach process.
Are we?
I feel like
okay,
no, we're not actually.
Are we?
Like,
They're interviewing one person a day, and it gets announced at like 7 p.m. every day.
yeah, okay. Maybe we're not.
Other
but,
teams are on their second round of interviews.
Well, we have a second round scheduled with Matt Eberflus, and we're going to discuss that. But yeah, it's going to be fun to have Jarrett back in here. He's got some insight, and we're really going to discuss with him like who he thinks is going to be the head coach and GM, but also like what qualities he's looking for, what's important. So we'll get Jarrett in here as soon as he shows up. But yeah, I'm excited, man, because I did a lot of research this week. I did a lot of, digging because it was kind of overwhelming, right? Like we talked about this last show and I didn't realize this. I did the research afterwards. The Bears only interviewed 5 head coaching candidates the last hiring cycle. So in 2018, when they hired Matt Nagy, it was only 5 people. And Jake talked all last episode about how, look, this is good that we are entertaining all options, because then the more you see, the more people you have in the interview room that you are looking at, the more one guy stands out. And we talked about that margin of error. And that's true. So they have 10 guys instead of 5. So
even though you fought me for 15 minutes.
I did not fight. I fought you. Here's what I fought you about. I fought you about not hiring guys who were from the get-go not willing to work with Justin Fields. I'm fine with widening the net. I'm glad they're hiring more than less. That's always a sign of a diligent process. But if they automatically were like, oh, I don't want to work with Justin Fields, I don't care about casting a wide net for those people. But it seems like they have the right people, or some of the right people that they're hiring so far. But naturally, by volume and by nature of the number of people they're interviewing, this is going to be a longer process. And I know you, me, a lot of people are kind of like sitting here thinking, let's get a move on with this thing. But if anything, have we not learned that maybe time is also an indicator that they're really trying to get this thing right this time?
I think what is concerning for most people is that you already have your second interview with a head coaching candidate set up, and you haven't even interviewed all of your GM candidates yet, which I think is concerning. And I get that because obviously we've talked about, everyone's talked about, you turn on the Score, you turn on ESPN 1000, you turn on WGN News, you turn on whatever, the TV, the radio, whatever it may be. Even here, if you hired a head coach first, you're doing it the wrong way, and you are continuing the vicious cycle of screwing things up and kind of what we talked about before of that culture and things not changing the way that they need to be. And you're just sticking with the status quo. And that is just absolutely the wrong way. Why are we interviewing head coaches the second time, pushing that along further when, and granted, it's one guy, it's one head coaching candidate, but you haven't even completed all your GM interviews yet. So we can rant and rave all day about this. You hear us enough. Let's bring in Jarrett Payton, who joins us once again Jarrett, welcome back to the program. Good to
Let's
see
go.
you.
What's going on, fellas? What's going on?
How we doing?
Man, I feel like Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace were fired like over a month ago, dude. Like this is kind of, it's crazy to think like how this short period of time, all this has happened, all these different names, all these different interviews. And I'm trying to figure it out because there's no science to it. And I'll be honest with you. I'm gonna tell you something. I've been in this business with 3 head coaches. So Tressman, Tressman,
Fox, Nagy?
Nagy. Yeah. Tressman, Fox, Nagy. And when I got into the business, a couple of years ago, I mean, it was just really because of just the relationships that I've had with, coaches, and, Tressman and I had a really cool, relationship because I started out with him when he took his first head coaching job up in Canada in Montreal, and I was there, and I left on some not bad terms. It was just, I injured myself. I wanted to come back and see my doctors. They wanted me to see the doctors up in Canada. And when I came back, they wanted me to take a pay cut and sign another 2-year deal. And I looked at him and I was like, dude, you're a cool guy. Like, I just can't do it. I'll take my chances and go home. And so even then, he was a man of his word to me then. So I know how other people perceive him. So at that time, I had kind of an in. We were up at Bears, up at Bears camp in Bourbonnais. And I remember walking one day, and I'm walking from eating lunch, and he grabs me. He's like, Jarrett, you busy? And I'm like, nah. He's like, come in here. I'm watching film. And I sat down with him and started watching film. And we were going through film, and I'm just like, this is cool. Like, I got an in. Well, times have changed. Foxy, and by the end of his time here, I was cool with him. But Nagy, didn't really know Nagy, but the relationships that I built over those years. Now, dude, you guys don't understand. My phone that last week was bringing off the hook from a lot of people who I can't name, but execs, agents.
No one's listening to this. You can name names. It's fine.
No. Just people that either wanted me to look at their names of the name of their client's resume, just check it out. And the one thing that I've come to a conclusion about through all this, now we're about to wrap it up. This is where I'm going with all this. There are a lot of people out there that have more experience than a lot of these guys that they're bringing in here into Hallis Hall, and they're not getting an opportunity. And that's what this whole experience has shown me through this process, is there's a lot of guys in the NFL with 20 years of experience that aren't getting an opportunity to get these interviews for the GM job. And it's kind of sad, man. It really is. And that's where I am right now. So when I look at the names, and I know you're probably going to ask me, like, who am I looking at? I'll probably wait and give you my answer. There's not really a good answer at the moment right now. So I just really want to see how this thing plays out for this Bears organization, because they're going through the process of, casting a wide net, as they said. But pairings, I want to see how these guys pair together, because there's some interesting names, but I just don't know how they all fit with this organization.
So who are the guys that you mentioned? You said there's guys out there who have experience who aren't getting a shot. And the thing that typically happens around this time is you see a lot of the same guys getting interviewed. Like, it's not drastic between the Bears organization or the Jaguars or the Broncos or the Mets. It's typically generally the same pool of guys. Yeah. But you say there's guys out there who aren't getting opportunities that you think should be. Who are some of those guys that you think should be getting those opportunities?
Well, Kev, Jake, I'm going to be honest. This dude is a close friend of mine. I tweeted it out the other day. So, people do their homework. They'll see the relationship that I have with Kevin Kelly, who is the director of college scouting for the Chargers. And if you just look at his resume, dude, for the last 7 years of what he's done to really, like, when we're talking about Bosa, Herbert, you look at the names of the guys that he's drafted and the guys that they brought on, Eckler, who was undrafted. Like, this dude played football. He coached football. He's been around the league for 20 years, And dude, there's other guys on that list that don't have that much experience. And like, why isn't he a guy that's being looked at for the GM job? It's like, or GM jobs just around the league. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. And so, he's a guy that when you look at it, just go look at, what the Chargers have done over the last 7 years and look at the guys that are starting, that drafted, they brought in, and that are starting and being like complimentary players that are Pro Bowlers. Like, dude, like, that's what I want. I want a dude that's in that position, honestly, when you look at it, because to me, that makes the most sense. That's a dude that understands talent, that can evaluate talent, that's not just relying. Most of these GMs, a lot of them are relying on their scouts to give them the information. Like, you guys tell me if I'm wrong. Like, I'm not saying that if you didn't play the game of football that you don't understand football. I'm not saying that at all. Like, you can be an evaluator of talent, even if you didn't play. I get it. But the dudes that have played, dudes that have been in the grind, that understand how to find talent, that's what I'm looking for, man, at the GM position, right? Because those are the guys that are in the trenches. Those are the guys doing their homework. Those are the guys. I think about it. What is it? JoJo Wooden, right? Got the interview. Yeah. Kevin is actually doing the meetings that JoJo's sitting in. You know what I'm saying? Right. Tell me how this is all. Who, as my man Jim Jones from the Diplomats would say, who's in charge over here with all this, bro? Who's in charge? So, I mean, that's just one instance of someone that I know that I'm close to. And yeah, people are going to like, oh, that's your boy. No, it's not even that he's my boy. You look at the fact of just the resume and what he's done. It's guys like that I really think that need an opportunity to get a chance at some of these jobs. And, I know the league is trying to do the best it is to be able to interview, minorities and all this. All that is good because we need that. We need diversity when it comes to, especially at the head coaching position. There's not enough black coaches in the NFL.
Only one.
Yeah,
Mike Tomlin's the only one.
It's not enough. And we got to have diversity. It's good for everything. We talk about it in our everyday lives, right? We talk about it. We need that as well in the NFL. And there's a lot of guys that are qualified. And so through this process, like I told you guys, I'm just really seeing that there's a lot of stuff wrong in a lot of these. It's like who your agent is or who your connection is with, right? I know people don't probably want me to say all this stuff, but I'm be honest, man. That's what it is. Like, oh, who's your agent? If you tell me who, with these interviews, who a lot of these agents are, I bet you then it starts to connect. I'm like, okay, now it makes sense. But that's not what it should be about. It should be about who, when you look at someone's resume, what have they done? And what have they done over the past that gives them an opportunity to truly have a shot in an interview for one of these positions that there's just not a lot of. There's just not. We talk about 32 teams. There's not a lot. We talk, as a football player myself, it was hard for me because even when I was in Tennessee with the Titans, they were saying they were going to keep 4 running backs at one point in time. No, 5 running backs. And I was the 5th one, man. I was like, oh, man, Lendell White was on that squad. Chris Brown was on that squad. Travis Henry was on that squad. And I'm like, yo, they ended up keeping 4 running backs and taking 6 wide receivers, another extra wide receiver. You can't do that with these jobs. These jobs they come around and they fill up. And when they do, you got to wait your turn again. So it's really, really tough. And this process just can't be easy, especially when you're interviewing a bunch of people like this Bears organization is with Bill Polian.
So speaking of that, and I mean, the net that the Bears have thrown, both with the head coach and the GM candidates, I mean, do you think that they're going about this the right way with the Bill Polian whole committee approach? And I mean, because people, especially in Bears fans, know it. Okay, well, it's the McCaskies. They're going to do the same thing they always do. And now finally they're doing something a little bit different, bringing in Polian and bringing in other people, kind of a committee.
Jake, come on, man. So you're being nice, bro. You being real nice. But I can't hate on you for that. I know how that is. I'm the exact same way. It's like, how I have to talk about this organization, I always want to be honest, right? Because when it comes
Yeah.
to the McCaskies, man, I'll be honest with you, man. I love them to death. They've been great to my family. They're great to me. My relationship with George is locked tight. I mean, it is. It's really locked tight. My relationship with Ted Phillips is locked tight. As men, when you get a chance to, like, most people don't get a chance to be able to interact with them the way that I get a chance to interact with them, or to see the way that a guy like George, goes out of his way to come to, my family's run that we have every single year without even being asked to, or a bowling event that I have for my foundation. He RSVP'd, and I'm like, he ain't coming, and showed up with him and his wife and supporting what we do. And so, yeah, it's a balance there. I will never say a bad thing about the McCaskey family. They are part of my family. George is, from that press conference, it was rough, and I don't know if he would say that, but on the outside looking in, it was tough, because a lot of people were super excited about the change that happened earlier in the day around 9:30 when that news dropped that they were making changes. And then by the time that press conference ended by like 2:00, people just were like, yo, what's going on here? And yeah, the structure has changed a little bit, but I still feel like they're going around about it the same way. I mean, the Ernie Accorsi deal, trying to, you got Bill Polian. Now, Polian is a totally different, he's a totally different animal. We're talking about Hall of Famer, you know what I mean? Like, this dude, but he hasn't been in the league for over 10 years. So still, his connections inside of the league are super, super strong. And we're talking about a guy that constructed, put together a roster and, won a Super Bowl. You know what I mean? His credentials speak for themselves. But when it comes down to it, there's a lot. I feel like trying to figure out with, like, if you're gonna go out and get a head coach before a GM, I feel like Eberflus, like, that news today.
It's backwards, right? It's backwards.
That should have been the GM. And that's where we're going, because I just feel like a GM should be a part of this process. And the only way that he's not a part of this process is if you go out and get one guy. If you go out and get this one guy, then you could do whatever you really want to. But if you told me you're going to get Jim Harbaugh, you could pick the GM after that. Other than that, I feel like you need to go about this in a process to have, that GM that's going to be a part of this process, because George said it, that this guy's going to report to him with all of the goods and all of the ideas and what they want to do. So I tweeted that today. I just feel like you're putting the cart before the horse. And to me, that I wouldn't, if it was my process, I wouldn't be going about it that way. So that's why I think we're also interested to see how this thing kind of plays itself out, because no one really knows. But we have to be honest here too. Yeah, we didn't know at the time, but there's been situations before previous years where the guy that, a lot of people thought maybe a Bruce Arians that they had inside of that building, they let him leave. And so
Brandon Staley.
Yeah, we've seen it before. So I'm hoping in this process that Bill Polian is being a part of it. That whole entire unit that they kind of put together are really talking about this. And Sue Campbell is my guy, man. And when you talk about a dude that knows football, he knows football. And so having him inside of that room is very comforting for me. And I think it should be for Bears fans as well. I've been hearing a lot of people, like last week, who didn't know who he was. And people were, making jokes here and there about
Not us. Hand up. We gassed it up.
We were like, let's go.
We were all over it.
No. I know. Not you guys. Just other people around. And
no, you're right.
He was.
Right. No,
and
I saw the same things.
He's got a really, really good pulse of what's going on inside of that Bears locker room. And there's a reason why the way that Hallis Hall is now constructed with the revamp, that his office is right outside of the locker room. Guys stop there. So, and he's got a football background too. So the fact that he's a part of the process, I'm just hoping that George and Ted are really leaning on him to get his input of which way to go. Not only Bill Polian, but his as well, because I think he's a true asset to that team they put together of hiring the new GM and head coach.
So here's what scares me a little bit about the hiring process. When you talk about looking at resumes and you said, there's a lot of guys who have better resumes. I think when I'm looking at a lot of these candidates and you have these 10 guys that they have either interviewed or yet to be interviewed, and I'm looking at their resumes, I almost don't know exactly what to look for, because in the past, and oftentimes you get misled, right? You get misled by this offensive coordinator having a really good points per game and other really good statistics. And then they come here and it turns out they're not a good leader. They're not a good players coach. They can't do other things well. So when you're looking at resumes and you're looking at all these candidates and assume, you're in the room in that hiring process, what exactly are you looking for that's going to give Bears fans assurance beyond just statistics that they've had with previous teams and, just concrete things like this guy was a part of a Super Bowl team as a coach? What are the other things, whether they be intangibles or not, that give you comfort that this is going to be finally the right guy?
Well, for the
for the head coach first.
Yeah. GM is a little different.
Right.
Head coach has to be. Man, I learned something last week from Olin Kreutz. After everything, him and I don't know if you guys saw it, but we had an amazing conversation, and we talked about everything that happened with George and all that, and we got past it. And then that was my question to him about, like, what should you be looking for? And it's really about the conversation that you're having once these meetings are being conducted. And Olin was saying that, like, the questions that you got to ask this coach is this possible coach could be, you guys are going up against, you're going up against Seattle's defense. They run this. What are you going to do offensively and with Justin Fields to be able to combat how they run this defense, or if they're running, and like have them explain to you how they're going to go about doing it. In some ways, similar to back in the day with John Gruden and the quarterback, when he used to have the quarterbacks up on the board and figuring stuff out. That's what I want to know. Those are the questions I'm asking. Yeah, you can get to know somebody and see who they are. I think first and foremost, you got to find a person that you believe is a true leader. And then after that can lead men, because we're talking about that's what you have to have. If people don't believe in whoever is the head guy, it is not going to work. And I know we're starting to see some more stuff come out about Matt Nagy and, just about his relationship, especially I think with Mitchell Trubisky and how there was a lot of tension there. But when I look at the Bears and how they finished the season, to me, there's something to say about Matt Nagy and at least who he was, that these guys did not give up on him. Because I've seen teams like that. Or been on teams where, like, dudes just give up. It's over. And they didn't quit. So, yeah, some of that is on the head coach. Some of that is what you build inside of a locker room. But for me, when it comes to a head coach, they got to be a leader first. And then those questions, you got to fire off on them to make sure that they can answer all those questions. You can go look at the film of different guys and ask, okay, what do you see here? Tell me how, what you see in the footwork of this right tackle, or Larry Borum. Like, how can he get better? What would you do? Like, just those questions, they kind of piece it together to see that they're really about business and they know they can give you those answers. If someone's telling me, and I know in my head what's wrong, and they can go boom, 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 dude, that's the reason why you need like a former player, someone on that board that can be inside, that knows the game, that covers, that watches this team, that knows what's going on, so they can validate, like, at the end, like, yo, he was about his business. Like, he knew exactly what was going on. He X here, here, this is, you move in motion here because we're trying to find out where that spot's going to be in that zone to be able to sit down, all that stuff. If you can have that, it's special. And, man, I think about it, man, God rest his soul. I wish my pops was around. I believe in my heart if he was, he'd probably he'd be an owner of an NFL team by now at some point. But there was a point in time where he was a part of the board and was being able. So if you imagine if he was around to be able to help out throughout this process, like, dude, we wouldn't be in this position right now. we wouldn't be in this position right now, bro. He had this thing on point because his love for Chicago was through the roof, man. And like, man, my pops was super loyal, and it's crazy because I had, I've been having conversations trying to figure out more about how involved he was, and back when that draft with Randy Moss, the Bears asked him to talk to Randy, and he became real close with Randy because they were trying to get a vibe on what Randy was doing. So my dad was like the middle guy between them, talking to Randy. It's just crazy. But when you got a GOAT or you got someone that has done it before, man, it's easier to be able to bounce off those ideas and what's going on. And especially like George said it, he's not like a football guy. That's not his thing.
He's a fan.
To have more football guys around with these decisions, I think would make a lot of Bears fans a little bit more at ease.
So does that have to be who the next head coach is? Like, I mean, because obviously you have Leslie Frazier as a candidate, 85 Bear, Byron Leftwich, he was in the league, just to name a couple. But there's also something to be said about having maybe a guy like Brian Dabble, who wasn't necessarily a player in the league, but if he can put together a staff.
He's nasty.
Okay, is that your guy?
Is that your guy?
Man, I don't know. I mean, he excites me a lot. There's something about him that excites me. I think it's because of, what he's doing and how he runs his offense. Like he's a guy that will figure it out.
Well, it's kind of what he did with Josh Allen to a point, right? I mean, Josh Allen was this raw not nothing, but this kind of raw, he was a ball of clay, and you kind of have that with Justin Fields right now, right?
Yeah, that's what excites me the most. And I know it's hard because you're looking for a head coach. And I in my opinion, I feel like because I believe in Justin Fields so much and that I love his game, I love his makeup, I love everything about the young man. His toughness is through the roof. I said this yesterday. I will never forgive Matt Nagy for not protecting him enough in that Browns game. That hurt. Yeah. And the fact that like in the first half that he I can see if you go through a half and things aren't working, but then second half, make adjustments. Use your running back to chip. Like I've been in so many situations on games where that was the game plan, right? You got a team you're going up against that's got a great pass rush. And Jeff Fisher, when we were in Indy, he would always be like, we play, we're playing the Colts in Indy and just making sure with those pass rushers that we came off and we helped chip first, and then we would get into our route, help the tackles, help the edges out, and then you get into your route. Don't get into your route. If you see some color, see a blue jersey, white jersey, hit it, then get in your route. I didn't see that in the second half, and this young man kept getting back up. He kept getting back up. And I'm like, this, man, some dudes would fold and be done.
That's what everyone was worried about too.
Yeah. And so that's where I look and I say, if you're going to find a coach, you got to find someone that's going to mesh with him. Because right now the Bears are invested in him, and they're invested in this young man to see if they can get the most out of him. And for all these Bears fans who like seriously can't enjoy anything or have anything nice, like they always got to just moan and groan. Yesterday, people were tweeting at me saying, "Oh, this dude Pace made a bad decision of getting Fields and this."
Oh no!
I'm talking about his rookie season. If you see dudes like Justin Herbert, they mess everybody's brain up, dude.
Thank you.
They do. They mess everybody up because everybody.
Jarrett, I was saying that from day one. I was saying that you have Justin Herbert, and last year set literal records. Anomaly. That's not what you're going to get with every rookie quarterback, especially. Thank you. Vindication.
Especially a guy that went to a prominent university when it comes to football. Offense was, Ryan Day's offense was so perfect for him. And let's not forget, dude, the dude had a bunch of ballers around him at the wide receiver position and running back. Like, dude had straight ballers. Take the wide receivers off Ohio State, put them on this Bears roster with Darnell Mooney, bro, I bet you I bet you they have a better result because that's what he needs. You got to surround him with ballers. You got to surround him with dudes that can play. And I knew he was going to have his ups and downs. That's what happens as a rookie, man. I don't care how good you are. You're going to have your ups and downs. But the flashes of greatness and brilliance, the Steelers game, like, dude, there's you don't see that. And so now the goal is to find someone that can get all of that out of him and vibe with him. He needs to have someone he can vibe with. Remember early on in the season, I forgot when it was. It was when it's when Nagy gave up play calling and he was on the podium and he was talking, like Justin was saying, like how anxious it is to be around Nagy in the game. But he like it was just crazy. And I knew there's something that was there that I was like, man, he needs someone he can vibe with.
I think it was when he was saying how Bill Lazor had a calm and steady voice.
Bill Lazor's calm, and then Nagy, like there was something there where he was like, bro, this dude is I don't know about this dude. And that's hard to do. But give credit to Nagy. Let's be honest though. When you got a lot of stress on your plate, you're a head coach, you were brought in here to call plays. You were supposed to come and be this offensive guru, and then you're giving up play calling. And now you do, as a head coach, even when you're not calling plays, you still have to manage everything else that's going on. And when you're losing, you have losing streaks like the last couple of years. I mean, it's rough. So I get that. But having someone that can really vibe with Justin, I think is going to pay off in the long run because he's a young kid still. I mean, he's a young kid, and these young kids now, you got to be able to speak on their level, in their language, know what's going on, keeping up with them, to have that relationship and build that relationship so you can get the best out of them. And I just don't know who that is yet. I don't know. I mean, I feel like Byron Leftwich is a great idea. Is that right there? Because we're talking about not only do that play, but play the position and knows what it's like to play the position as a black quarterback. You know what I'm saying? Like, but there's something to be said about that because a lot of guys don't understand what that's like and the grind that it is, and we're starting to see that was back in the day, being a black quarterback was tough. Now, if you look around the league now, there's more African Americans playing the position now, and it used to be like, nah, you're not good enough to play this position. Nah, dude, if you can ball, you can ball.
Yep.
And we're gonna see it. But it takes good coaching to bring that out, and that's what scared me about year one with Justin because I knew the pieces that were around him weren't right for him. And he was going to have to do this basically on his own with his guys out on the field. That's why before that Minnesota game he was talking about, I'm going to be on the field and ball with my dogs because I don't know how many of these guys are going to be around. He's setting the tone. He is the tone. And for us this Bears team to have success, man, he's got to feel at ease. And so, whatever he wants, they need to get. And it's hard now when you look at the way that the roster is structured for right now, going to next season. There's pieces that are there, but they still got holes to fill. Mm-hmm. And there's not a lot of draft capital to be able to make you're going to have to do it again. And the way that Ryan Pace left this thing, man, is it makes me want to pull out my hair that I don't have.
Jarrett, I go to Ohio State, so I've watched Justin Fields play the past 2 years before he was drafted. And, I was on the field this year at the games, and I connected with a few Bears scouts who were there. And they were taking a look at Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson, and they asked me, who do you want to draft? And I was like, either of them. They're both great. Let's get both of them somehow. And so, hey, there's a chance that they could get one of those guys. And after looking at what Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase have done in Cincinnati, I would not be opposed to hooking him up back with one of his guys from college at all.
real quick. It's not. Look at Joe Burrow now. Joe's like, bro, that's my guy.
Yeah.
You create a bond at that position. Those two positions, man, the special ones. I mean, just look at Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams. I mean, they literally can do stuff without even thinking because they've done it so much. This game is about repetition, man. It's repetition over and over again, getting a feel and knowing what he's thinking, even if he doesn't say anything to me, because what we see out here, this dude is pressed up on me. I know what to do. He knows what I'm going to do because it's over and over. It's those reps that we do, not in practice, not just in practice, but after practice. And that's what I love about Justin, is that he puts in that work after practice. Give him more ballers around him. Man, that's only going to elevate his game. Go ahead, Kevin. I'm sorry.
No, that you're absolutely right. I think the thing that scares me though, when we go back to talk about the head coach and the relationship of him with Justin Fields, is when we go back to that press conference that George McCaskey did, there wasn't a whole lot of, look, this head coach needs to be willing to work with Justin Fields. He is the center of all conversations that we are going to have in the interview process. It was more so of the head coach can make any decision he want. The GM can make any decision he want on Justin Fields. And it scares you, right? Because if you think about the last time that the Bears went through this hiring process, it's the same situation. You're going into year 2 of a quarterback, a guy who obviously needs a little bit of work. And now I think we all know Mitch Trubisky and Justin Fields are on completely different levels. That's a conversation we can have for a different podcast. But
we don't have to have that conversation at all.
We'll never have that conversation.
Yeah,
but
we don't need to have that conversation.
Does it scare you a little bit that they might not go out and find the guy who is going to be best suited to work with Justin Fields? Because that scares the hell out of me.
It should scare you, bro. Should scare you. Anytime that you have turnover, it should scare you. Like, that's the conversation that I had with a couple of dudes from Miami. One is a former Miami Dolphin. Another guy works for the flagship station for the Dolphins. And we were I was calling him, just trying to figure out a little bit about Brian Flores.
Mm-hmm.
Like, tell me about this dude. These two dudes, they know each other. They're not best friends. They know each other through just, being in Miami, all that stuff, but not super close. And they were just talking about how, Brian Flores really is this guy that is a no-nonsense type of guy. He's a football guy, right? But also, too, the control that, he wants within an organization. And the one thing I said, what should Bears fans, if that's the case and they really like him, like the Bears like him, what's the one thing that they should be worried about? And he said the same thing that happened with Tua.
Yeah.
He didn't like Tua, and he stunted his growth. And that should scare Bears fans a little bit. And God, please, God, don't let that happen, because not Flores, but I'm just saying in general with any coach. Like, don't let that happen, because Justin has unbelievable talent. He's talented out of this world. He just needs that right person to be around him and start to let him get that vibe of how to play this game and understand the game and really grasp the game, where he is on that same level that he can play without thinking that much. That's where we see the brilliance of certain guys, like a guy like Aaron Rodgers. He's so ahead of what everybody else is doing, and he's so comfortable that he's seen everything because he studies. And the more you study, the more you go on the field and you practice those things, you get comfortable, man. My dad told me all the time, he watched film. He would see, like, he knew where basically holes were going to be, because, he's like, yo, I watched the film. I see where this linebacker is going to be. He's going to overrun it. I'm going to press it, cut it back. I know on third and short. That's what they like to do when they run the ball, and watch them run cut-ups. These guys that can do that, that's when you see them be able to kind of play freely and let their athleticism take over. And that's what scares me the most, is that somebody could come in here not like Justin, and now we're talking about waiting even longer to really solidify that position, when if you get the right guy that can mold him and shape him, we could be talking about, in my head, Ben Roethlisberger type years. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
That's what I'm hoping for.
Right.
That's what I'm hoping for. That's what I want. I wanted one dude for a long time. I'm tired of the turnover at the position and not figuring it out and putting Band-Aids and giving guys $19 and $17 million and they're starting 4 games. Like, dude, who ever thought that bringing Mike Glennon to Chicago was a good idea? Like who's in charge? Like, seriously. Seriously, you guys, come on, man.
No, you're right.
We know. Come on, we knew what was going to happen. But we were all trying to block it, going, all right.
We spent months trying to convince ourselves that Mike Glennon could win games.
Defense is good enough. All we need is someone to be able to be a game manager. No, here in Chicago, we need something better than that. Yep. We need to have that quarterback that's like Aaron Rodgers, that everybody is fearful of when they come here or we go there. That's what we should have, man. A killer. The founding organization of the NFL, bro. This organization should be in the conversation of playoffs, hunt for a championship every single year.
Yep.
Every single year. And Bears fans that are upset, they have a right to be upset because that hasn't been the case. So whoever's going to be hired for these 2 jobs, this is one of the most crucial years of this organization ever, because this right here is going to be a huge turning point of whether this team in the next 2 years is competitive. And we're talking about this, and we're talking about contending for a championship and winning the NFC North, or it could be a longer period of time where we're like, oh, it's time to find another quarterback, figure this out, another head coach.
Exactly.
No, we can't do that.
I mean, we've seen good head coaches exist in the organization. We've seen okay quarterbacks exist in the organization. We've never seen a good quarterback and a good head coach exist at the same time. Like, that's
True.
what you mean when you're saying that this is literally the situation with the most gravity in Bears history. I think you could be right. Real quick, you did the interview with Kyle Brandt. Tell us what he said. Kyle Brandt, you say he talked to Matt. I watched the video. He talked to Matt Nagy. Tell us what he said, what Matt Nagy said about Justin Fields.
Well, Kyle is unbelievable, man. He's like, huge Bears fan and Walter Payton fan. And so him and I have like connected just through social and talking and seeing each other at Super Bowls. And so, man, he was very gracious. We were supposed to do the interview today, but he was going out of town. And so he's like, yo, I'm going to change it to Tuesday. I'm like, cool, let's do it. So as we're talking, he just starts to slip out that he has been in contact with Matt Nagy since he was fired. And I'm like, all right. So I'm just sitting back and I'm like, all right, keep going. And he's like, he said that he had the conversation. He said, like, things didn't turn out the way that he'd hoped, but that Justin Fields is the real deal. And that he has a lot of confidence that he's the right one and that he sees championships down the line with this young man. And to me, that's saying something, because I feel like a lot of us see that in him. We all see that he's got that talent. He can't do it by himself, though. No matter how good you are, you got to have pieces around, like a good quarterback and in your organization. And to me, that starts up. I always say this as a football guy. It starts up front and it starts in the trenches. Like, you got to be able to dominate offense and defensive line to be able to win a championship. And to me, it's about really surrounding Justin with an offensive line that can really do what they need to do. And they got to get back to old school. You got to get back to running the football. And that we saw that this past year, like that was the strength.
Yes.
Because there was, through the Nagy era, there was no real identity on the offensive side of the ball.
Right.
And so then when you start to see these guys running, and I'm like, holy cow. And so that's what's long term. I think about David Montgomery, like, what's going to happen? I love Khalil Herbert as well. Like, both guys are studs, but what decision is this new, GM going to take when it comes to his future? Because people don't want to pay running backs, man. Like, nobody wants to pay running backs anymore. But still, when you look at where we are at this time of the year, I bet you when the 2 final teams that are going to be playing in LA, I bet you both teams are going to can run the football. Mm-hmm. I'm telling you right now, both teams from the AFC is a little bit kind of, Chiefs can do it if they want to. They got a different type of quarterback. But I'm telling you, Green Bay can run the football. These teams, San Francisco can run the football. At this point in time, everybody wants to air it out all the time. It really comes down to running the football and then everything off of that. And so with Justin, that's where I think the possibilities are endless, because this young man, and Kev, you saw it, kid can throw the deep ball awesome. So play action is a part of the game that I really want to see them kind of really cultivate and really work on, because taking more shots down the field, we didn't really see that in the Matt Nagy era. Everything was hitches, curls, everything 10 yards here. We're gonna try.
You could have stopped at hitches. That was basically that was basically it.
Okay, we're gonna. What are we doing here?
Allen Robinson subtweeted him. He after the Chiefs Bills game, Allen Robinson tweeted, "Wow, isn't it amazing what you can do with crossing routes?" Like, he tweeted that. And that's directly at Matt Nagy, because we know how he was limited this year.
The one dude, Darnell Mooney, ran a lot of those.
He ran a lot of Yankee concept, right?
Yeah, and but that's the fact is he's younger and faster.
Yeah.
That's what you can do, with A-Rob, as he's getting older. He's still a good football player. I'm still it's kind of baffled that I thought that the relationship between him and Justin was going to be phenomenal from all the quarterbacks that he's had throughout his career. I thought this was going to be it.
Yeah.
And it never transpired this past season. But a lot of his routes, because he's not a speed guy, he's more of like a possession guy, right? Yes. He'll get you. He's not afraid to go in the middle. He's never afraid. But that speed's not there like Mooney's speed is. So he's not effective there. And a lot of his routes, he had defender right on him. And we're talking about a rookie quarterback trying to put it on the numbers. Sometimes as a rookie, I understand that those passes right there sometimes turn into interceptions. So sometimes I'm thinking in my head, I don't know about making that throw. I can make this throw. And over time, I think he'll get better at that. But as a rookie, you want to be able to take care of the football as much as possible. And I think that was kind of the marriage that I thought was going to happen, and it never really happened with those two in the connection on the football field.
So, all right, before we, let you get out of here and get back to your life, who's out of everyone, we have the candidates, all the interviews aren't done, but who are your guys so far? Who do you like?
Didn't we talk about one already?
You like Dabble?
Yeah,
you like Dabble.
I like Dabble. I like him.
If you had to guess right now, if they were to hire somebody tomorrow, who do you think it would be?
Kev, I can't tell you, dude. I have no clue.
It's a mystery.
They've like diluted my brain with all these people. I have no clue.
Yeah.
I literally have no clue. I don't. Oh man, I really don't know. I can't. I've been trying. I was thinking about that before I got on with you guys. I'm like, they're going to ask me, but I really don't know. And I was with Adam Johns today. He's doing an interview for my show tonight, and I asked him the same thing, and he didn't give me an answer. He's just like, So I don't know. I just feel like whoever it is, I believe in my heart it's got to be. I'd rather see a guy, offensive-minded type head coach. And I know that might be scary of what they went through with Matt Nagy, but if you go back and do your homework, you can understand that there was a lot of red flags there before it even started, with him not really calling plays in KC and
that final playoff game against
Tennessee, final playoff game. There was just a lot of red flags, But if there's a guy that has done it and has shown that he could be successful, Dabble, that's why I like him, because I think just the relationship with Josh Allen, a lot of people like, oh, who is this dude, man? He ain't going to be this. He ain't. What? And now we're looking at one of the best young quarterbacks in the NFL. So I think he excites me a little bit. He might not excite everybody else, but he excites me just a little bit. That'd be the only one as of right now that excites me because of what I think he could do for Justin Fields.
Yeah,
all right.
Well,
we'll say that's your guy.
Game, after that Patriots, after what they did to the Patriots, I think people are excited about him. Jarrett Payton, always a pleasure. We appreciate you, the man that smiles with all of his teeth. It's great talent.
Yes.
Great teeth. It's tremendous.
Hey, you guys, listen. You guys are amazing. I just want to let you know you guys are balling out of control, and the fact that you guys are keeping up with this team, doing what you do, this podcast, man, I commend both of you for just being on your grind, man. Like, It's tough. It's
all
really,
right. We'll bring you back. All right,
All right,
fine.
thank you.
Right,
Thank you.
yeah,
Let's
You secured a third appearance. All
Let's
right.
go. All right, boys. Appreciate you.
Jarrett,
Appreciate you, man.
it.
Take
it
care.
easy.
All right, peace.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much. Jarrett Payton, everyone. What a guy.
What a guy.
What a guy. That's we did not pay him to say that.
We did not. Surprisingly enough, I don't have the money to pay a guy like Jarrett Payton to make a statement like that. I don't. I'm sorry. I'm a broke college kid, and for him to say something like that, it's probably like what, $50 on Cameo or something? Like
probably more. I mean,
probably
this is Jarrett
more.
Payton. No, but Jarrett is always awesome. Very gracious with his time. He's the best. We really appreciate him. He's the leader in the clubhouse on guest appearances on recurring appearances now.
Is he?
So, yeah, I think so.
He's tied for the lead. Abdallah's got 2.
Oh, true.
Shane's got 2.
Yeah, it's Shane's.
He doesn't count.
Shane just
legitimate guests.
Shane does us a favor because he has to see me every day and he feels bad for me.
Exactly.
No, Jarrett was awesome. Appreciate his time so much. Always has a lot of very good points that he makes and a lot of big ideas that he brings that we talk about. It's awesome. Great answers every time. Love you, Jarrett. You're the man. Appreciate you.
Much love, man.
Yeah, I mean, he's right.
Kind of right, though. Like, you don't know.
He was right about a lot of stuff.
He's right about everything because the guy is freaking smart. But, like, I think, like, when we asked him that question, he said, look, Adam Johns has the same response. I think if you ask any of the people in the chat right now, it's the same.
Together. It's nice that we're all in the dark together. Nobody knows what's going on.
We are so used to polarization in this fan base. I'm glad we can all be together in the fact that no one knows what the hell is going on. But I will say, I made my list. I don't know if you made your list. I made my list. And now, again, these things are subject to change, man. Like, January 19th, like, you may like a guy more because he gets the second interview and you've heard good things from the organization based off of what they did in that interview. I made my list today based off of their previous resumes, based off of what I know about them, not based off of anything else, any sort of relationships between the organization and the candidate. So I'll just give you my 1 through 10 and then I'll kind of explain it.
1 through 10?
There's 10 head coaching candidates. That's how many there are.
You went through all right.
I went through all of them. All right. Number 1. This is a very big surprise, Jake. I looked through a lot of things, and I'm
very scared about whatever words are about to come out of your mouth right now.
Number 1 is Jim Caldwell. Actually,
stop.
I'm not kidding.
All right, you're out. You are off this show. That is an outrageous thing to say.
But tell me why. Tell me why it's an outrageous statement. Because
I don't want a guy in this. Like, I don't want a guy who's would be his third opportunity in the NFL. You talked about earlier with Jarrett.
No.
With you said the same guys get recycled, and also he flamed out with Detroit and like.
Let me.
Jake, that's also just so uninspiring. That's so like Jarrett like talked about. You want a guy that's exciting and that could do something. Like, that's so uninspiring. The comments are just gonna rip you apart.
I'm getting worked.
That's so uninspiring. He's flamed out.
You don't know. No, it's because you don't know. Let me tell you. Look, Jarrett Payton came on this show and he said, "Look, you have to look at all the past resumes, right? Look at the past resumes.
I would rather have. Do
you know Jim Caldwell's past resumes? First year he was the head coach in Indianapolis. His team went 14-0 until he sat his starters the final 2 games. They ended up going 14-2, and they lost to the Saints in the Super Bowl. The year after that, they lose to the Jets in the wild card game. The year after that, Peyton Manning gets neck injuries. They go 2-14 and gets fired because Peyton Manning wasn't the quarterback anymore. He goes to Detroit. In his first season with a franchise that's been in the mud for years, for decades at the time, takes them to the playoffs for the first time in however many years for the Lions, and they lose to the Cowboys by 4 points in the playoffs. Then they go 7-9 the next year, and then 9-7 they make the playoffs again in 2016. Again, for a franchise that historically can never make it. Again, they lose in the playoffs, but I don't have look. The reason why I say Jim Caldwell is because I'm still terrified of the other offensive options. I'm okay with Byron Leftwich. I'm not going to lie. Brian Daboll scares the hell out of me. He's done great things in Buffalo, but everything before that is extremely concerning. And you start to consider whether Buffalo's the anomaly, whether he's lucky that there's a good roster. And the things with Josh Allen are great. Look at his resume beyond Buffalo. His numbers and the offenses and the units that he led prior to Buffalo and prior to when he was the offensive coordinator at Alabama, which I think is just extraneous because it's Alabama. I'm sorry, you get the best talent in the country. I'm not going to evaluate that. Was not good. It was not good. Look, everyone who's listening to this right now, go look up Brian Daboll just on Wikipedia and look at what he did in the past. And I haven't seen much about development up until then. So I know it's you're right. It may not be inspiring. I don't think you can just look at Jim Caldwell's resume and say, "Oh, he got fired twice, like he's done."
It's not just that. Well, Kevin, it's not just that he got fired. It's that he, like, especially in Detroit, he flamed out. You know who else? You know what's another coach that went to a franchise that was stuck in the mud, took him to the playoffs twice, and then they just completely devolved?
Who?
We just saw it. Matt Nagy just did it.
Yeah, but that's different. Matt Nagy was what do you mean? Oh, with the Bears.
Matt Nagy came here, elevated you in his first year, won Coach of the Year, 12-4, took you to the playoffs, lost in the playoffs. Okay, whatever. Obviously, the kick we all know. Okay, then you're 500. Then you make it back to the playoffs, lose a horrible game to the Saints. Like, it's the same. Like that. It's the same thing. You flamed out. Like, that's the same thing that happened to Detroit with Caldwell. He flamed out. Like, that's just. And I get what you're saying with Daboll, and I get the concern, but you also have to, like, in that situation, like, it's recency bias. You can use that for a little bit. Like, the last 2 years, what Buffalo has done, that's 2 years consistently that Josh Allen has gotten better in back-to-back years. Like, Brian Daboll has made Josh Allen an MVP candidate.
Maybe.
And the thing is, we talked about this a little bit last week. If you look hard enough, you're going to be able to poke holes in just about every coach. There's not going to be anyone that is perfect. Leslie Frazier, defensive guy, older guy, kind of more traditional. You're not sure if he's going to be inspiring or going to put that staff together that you want. Byron Leftwich, okay, is he calling the plays? How much does Brady have to do with that? How much does Arians have to do with that? Okay, Doug Peterson, well, yeah, he won a Super Bowl, but then what about that caustic relationship? Okay, Brian Flores, yeah, he went on a 7-game winning streak, but also, like, he may have ruined Tua. There's going to be things for every guy. It's just going to have to depend on it. And Jarrett kind of touched on this with the GMs a little bit, what you value more. Like, it's just going to depend on what you value. And again, we're two, early 20s kids. We're not in these interviews. We don't know what's being said. Jarrett said it's important to get those guys in there, have a board, and be like, okay, I can do this, 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 and this. This is how I'd attack this. This is how I beat Green Bay, blah, blah, blah. Here's the red tape. Okay, like, we don't know. We don't know what questions are being asked. We don't know what information is being brought by the candidates to these information or to these meetings. So everyone is going to have warts, and that's why guys don't get hired. Like that. That's why head coaching candidates every year don't get hired, because everybody has warts. For whatever reason, you may not like one guy over the other, but there's also going to be things that you have to look at, like what they did. Okay, yeah, Brian Daboll, his history isn't extensive, but look what he did to Josh Allen the last couple of years, made him an MVP candidate. Yeah, Byron Leftwich, you don't know how much of a hand he's had in that Tampa Bay offense, but they've been Super Bowl contenders the whole time. So you have to take different things and kind of put the whole puzzle together based on those little bits of information.
You are right. But at some points, you might not put together the right puzzle. Like, you know what I mean? Like, at some points you take the pieces and it might not come out clean. Like, you might put the pieces together the wrong way. And I think when I again, I'm telling you right now, everyone listening to this who still thinks I'm crazy, I'm erring on the side of caution with this list. I'm erring on the side of caution because I'm afraid. And I think when we get into these situations, oftentimes we get a little bit carried away with what Jarrett said about the excitement factor, that I want somebody fresh, I want somebody new. And sometimes, like, that excitement factor isn't all that. Like, the excitement factor is great for the time being, and it's like, wow, we brought in Matt Nagy, club dub, excitement. This is awesome. This is gonna be great for a year. And then you're gonna realize who he really is. Once the excitement fades away and the initial rush of hiring a guy who runs a Santa sleigh game on Sunday Night Football, runs a Santa sleigh play on Monday Night Football, once that initial rush goes away and the real colors are revealed, that's when you start to figure out who these guys really are. For weeks, Jake and I have talked about the fact that, look.
Well, that's the thing. We're not going to know for years.
I know.
No matter who gets hired, we're not going to know for years.
But here's what I'll say about that. And the reason why I was just going to say this is, I think for some of these guys, you might not have to wait as long. Like when it comes to the guys who are exciting, the guys who are new, the guys who are fresh, the guys who kind of, have been around the league, but maybe just burst onto the scene as potential head coaching candidates, such as a Brian Daboll, maybe such as a Byron Leftwich, those guys are going to take longer because you don't know as much about them. So I know Jim Caldwell is older. Okay. He is an African-American head coach. There's something to be said about that and how he can work with Justin Fields and, the way he worked with Matthew Stafford. And also remember this, Jake, when he was fired, there was a lot of upset Detroit Lions players that he was fired. And, they were 9-7 there. He got fired. They had been in the playoffs twice in his 4 years, like probably the first head coach in Lions history to ever do that. Or not first, sorry, second or third to ever do that. Players were upset. People were upset. And they brought in Matt Patricia, and things just weren't the same after that. He kind of got him back on track. Again,
Matt Patricia was also kind of a bozo.
Yes, that is true. But there is a negative connotation towards his name. But when you look at his resume, you look at the things that he has done, it is a pretty damn good resume. So I know it's crazy, but let's hear your number one. We're done talking about me.
I mean, my number one's Daboll. I mean, just what he's done with Josh Allen. You have that same situation with a young quarterback who has all the physical gifts in the world, and you just got to figure out how to use them. It's also maybe Jim Caldwell is maybe Jim Caldwell's the answer. Maybe Brian Daboll's the answer. It also depends. Like, they're going to have to put together a staff too. Like, am I going to be mad if Jim Caldwell is like an assistant head coach or something? Like, no, absolutely not. I don't think the head coach would be the right role for Jim Caldwell on this team in this situation. I think Brian Daboll is, and again, recency bias, what they just did to the Patriots, who were a very good defense this year, is probably the thing that's most burned into my brain. But it's also just like, you look at what he did with Josh Allen, like Jarrett said, a guy who, when he came in, everyone was like, he's super raw. He comes from a school that isn't a charter program. You have no idea what he's going to turn into. And Brian Daboll turned him into an MVP candidate. I mean, I think that says a lot. Like, that sticks out to me. But also, like we were talking about, what you value more, that's something that I probably value more than, just hyper focusing on that quarterback situation is something that, and I try to look at it in a big picture sense more of like, okay, we have to look at everything, obviously. And we talked about that whole kind of puzzle analogy, but I mean, also, I just like, when you look at Brian Daboll and what he did with Josh Allen, it just pops, as like, kind of like when you look at Brian Flores and you're like, okay, yeah, he can lead a locker room, but what he did with Tua, that pops out too. Yeah. I don't know. This is just back to none of us know anything.
Yeah, I mean,
none of us know a damn thing.
Now, let me go down the rest of my list. Daboll is my number 3. Leftwich is my number 2, and the reason I would like Leftwich is, Arians, who is returning from retirement, when he got the job with the Bucs, he said in an interview with ESPN that he would not have taken the job with the Buccaneers if it wasn't for Jason Licht making Brian Leftwich available. He would not have taken the job if Brian Leftwich wasn't there with him. And I think that's very, very indicative.
It's a pretty big stamp.
That's a pretty, for a guy like Bruce Arians to say that, I think that's important.
Yeah.
Just because everyone's getting on my ass, I'll put Jim Caldwell and Brian Leftwich at A1A or 1A, 1B. That's because everyone's making me feel like an idiot. But I'm going to go with my gut. And I'm like, I like him for those reasons. Going down the list, I'm just going to run through it. I'm not going to give an explanation for all these guys. Number I said 3, Daboll. 4 is going to be Eberflus. 5, Frazier. 6, Flores. 7, Hackett. 8, Bowles. 9, Quinn. 10, Peterson. So that's where we're at. Now, you want to go down the rest of your list?
I'll just do my top 3 because I think it's just kind of silly to do all 10 of them. But Brian Daboll's 1 for me. Byron Leftwich is number 2. And the number 3, I honestly haven't even gotten really this far because I'm so fixated on those 2. But I guess Flores would be my 3rd, depending on if you're in the interview asking the right questions. Like if he signs on as a Justin Fields guy, then I think he immediately becomes one of the top. He has to be a top 3. So I think you have to immediately consider him. If he's a Justin Fields guy, because of what he did do with the Dolphins, I think he knows how to run a club. And I believe I know it's scary because he went through 4 offensive coordinators. So that's a little bit of but I mean, Yeah, I mean, it's really Dabble and Leftwich for me at this point. I think it's too early for Kellen Moore or Nathaniel Hackett.
No,
I
Kellen
don't
Moore.
want.
That
I
guy
don't
should
really
not get a
want Doug
single hire from a
Peterson.
single team.
Todd Bowles, I don't hate.
Yeah.
I don't hate what
Like
he
you're
could
telling
do.
me you're telling me you hate Jim Caldwell, but you don't hate Todd Bowles. Like what are we doing here? Tell me what Todd Bowles has done better than Jim Caldwell in the past. Like
stayed in the league and been on a championship defense.
Jim Caldwell stayed in the league. He had to remove himself from the organization because he had health issues, which I guess
right.
is
So I'd rather have Todd Bowles, who stayed in the league
Todd
the
Bowles
last couple of years.
Right.
Jim Caldwell? I'm not saying he's my number one.
Look, if Jim, I will say too, if Jim Harbaugh was available, he'd vault into my top 3. We've had that conversation
I think he's going to take
before.
that Raiders job.
I
think he's going to take that Raiders job because I think they're going to offer him the GM job too.
Now,
because that's part of why
the GM job.
Because I mean, part of the reason he had to leave San Francisco was a power struggle. He's going to want power.
Yeah,
he's going to want that power. I think they're going to. I think the Raiders. I think if anyone's going to give Jim Harbaugh the amount of power he wants, it's going to be Mark Davis. Mark Davis is going to be the one that gives Jim Harbaugh all that power, if that's what he wants.
That's
true. But I mean, I don't know. We'll see what happens.
I want to wait real quick. We were kind of going over time, but why not? Let's have some fun. Matt Eberflus. This is important. This is critical. Matt Eberflus is the first head coach candidate to get a second interview, and the reason why I think that's significant is, when Bill Polian hired Tony Dungy, he said years after hiring, he knew in 15 minutes Tony Dungy wanted to be his head coach. There is something to be said about Eberflus getting the first nod to have the second interview means they like him a lot. He's that instantly should put him at number 1 from a front runner standpoint.
It's two things. Yeah, they like him. Secondly, availability.
Well, but they're able to interview Dabble and Leftwich. That is true. They're able to interview those guys, but right. I
mean, Eberflus isn't in the playoffs. He doesn't have a team to get ready to play on Saturday or Sunday. So availability is like, okay, yeah. Like Eberflus is sitting at home. He's not doing anything else,
Yeah. I mean, yes, that's true. Now, but let me tell you about him a little bit. Because no one knows who the heck he's got a cool last name, I guess. It's going to be kind of, I don't know how I feel about that last name, Eberflus. Does it roll off the tongue well for you? Eberflus?
Who cares?
It's not like a
who cares?
Nagy.
Oh, because that worked out so well.
Fox.
Yeah. These things work so great.
Matt Eberflus.
You're really endearing yourself to the viewers and listeners right now.
Matt, the thing about Matt Eberflus, defensive coordinator over at
Indianapolis.
He received high praise from Chris Ballard, and that is extremely important. He really wanted him on staff. Now, the thing that I found about him was he was credited with instilling a, quote, ultra demanding culture of hustle, discipline, and teamwork that ultimately helped to turn the Colts around from a 4-12 team 2017 to a 10-6 playoff team. And a lot of the credit for that turnaround goes to Matt Eberflus. So then when you talk about the intangible aspects, you talk about the development of players, you talk about the leadership aspect, that's there. Now we can't get baited by, players coach type deal, right? Because we got baited by that with Nagy a little bit, right?
Sure.
It seems. But the thing that you will see on Matt Eberflus's resume that is consistent throughout his years as a linebackers coach, as a defensive coordinator, is he has developed every single guy that he has worked with in those linebackers rooms. He helped develop Darius Leonard. He helped develop guys in the past. And that is where we talk about the number one thing that frustrated us about Matt Nagy and about this coaching staff, right, was that they could not develop the talent that was there. That was number one.
Sure.
The Bears had talent for years to make the playoffs. Every single year they had talent to make the playoffs. They didn't develop that. Matt Eberflus has been able to develop talent. Somebody in the chat just said Eberflus sounds like another virus.
I saw that.
And that just makes me laugh. And then one other thing, again, cultural impact, all that. So I just wanted to give a little debrief on Matt Eberflus because him being named as the first guy to get the second interview is significant, and people should take notice of that. Doesn't mean they're going to hire him, but there is some significance. Again, Jake mentions the availability. That may be true, but I still think, okay, Brian Flores, why is he not getting a second interview yet? Right? Like those things.
Well, everybody wants him.
I guess everybody wants him.
I think he's still doing interviews. I think he's still doing first round of interviews.
Yeah. So I like Caldwell or Leftwich. I think those are my top two, and I'd be happy with either of them. Are we going to do another episode before they hire? I mean, we don't know, but I mean, they're going to hire I'm under the assumption, Jake.
We're at the mercy of the news cycle here.
I'm under the assumption they're hiring the head coach first. Like, I'm under the assumption that's going to be the case. I unfortunately, that's the way, because Jake, they have yet to interview 6 GM candidates. 6.
Yeah.
How are you yet to interview 6 GM candidates, but you're already moving on to the second interview of a head coach? It makes zero sense. So based off of what we know about that, don't get me wrong. I don't want that to happen.
No, nobody does. I know.
But I'm afraid it is.
Because you're right.
I'm afraid it is.
Wait,
do you want to talk GMs real quick? Let's go like 5 more minutes. Want to talk GMs, or you want to get the heck out of here? What do you want to do?
We'll do GMs next week because they haven't even interviewed everyone. We don't know any of these guys.
It's true. Who the heck are they? Well, other than whatever his face.
That's what we'll do Monday. Monday we'll do a deeper dive on all of these GMs candidates. Hopefully most of the interviews will be done. But yeah, and who knows? Maybe a hire will be made by then. But Monday, that's what we'll do. We will dive more into these GM candidates, where they've been, what they bring to the table. Shout out again to Jarrett for coming on. Appreciate you. You're the man.
Dude, what a guy.
For giving us as much time as you do whenever we ask.
I just want to let this be known to the people. Jarrett Payton emailed me, said, I got 10 minutes. All right. This dude went for 45 minutes. If that does not show you what kind
that's
of
what happened last time, though, too. We had about 20, and he went, I think, 45. Same thing.
He's just a great guy.
He also gets into his answers. He gives really long and detailed answers, which we appreciate. That's awesome.
Yes, what we want.
You're the man, Jarrett. We really appreciate you. Thank you for coming on. Thank you guys to the listeners and the viewers to coming every week. We appreciate you guys. We know we're all
tonight, dude.
Invested. Yeah, you guys were insane tonight, which is a good thing. I mean that endearingly. But seriously, love you guys. Appreciate you guys. Kevin, I'll see you next week. We will be back next Monday, 7 p.m. Central, right here. And if you miss it, you always have the podcast. Until then, we love you guys. We'll talk to you then. And as always, bear down.
Bear down.